What's going on, everybody? This is Brian Mazik. I'm a fight guy, a Forbes contributor, and I also write for Heavy.com. And I have my fellow fight guy, fellow Forbes contributor, and Boxing Manager of the Year candidate from 2019, Peter Kahn. What's going on today, Pete?
Everything's great, Brian. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Just feeling fresh and clean. I just got out of the shower, so that's probably why. At any rate, we are powered by Fight TV and presented by Bet Online. You, and I mean you, need to go to YouTube right now if you're not already there. If you're already there, you don't even have to travel as far. The button that says subscribe, I want you to ball your fist up and smack it hard as you can. And then just tap that the bell for notifications so that you know when the videos are coming up. It's important. Don't you like us? Don't you want to see Salt and Pepper continue on?
That's right.
Push it real good. You got to do it. You got to do it. Push the subscribe button. Push it real good so that you will be able to see us moving forward. But
that's it.
Peter, let's go ahead and jump into round one.
So, Brian, we've been coming off a lot of UFC recently.
Mm-hmm.
And, leave that to your other homies to discuss. So, I don't know what happened, but after Francis Ngannou went at it with Jon Jones a little bit, Jon Jones is now, he's got a few things to say.
He does, and it's been crazy because it seems like he got his feelings hurt really because he wanted to try to talk his own fight up, and he feels clearly. I think like he should be at a point where he should be able to do that, and it seems like he might have run into a little bit of a stop sign. So maybe he's a little embarrassed too. But I'm gonna play some. I'll put some of the quotes up here, and this came from my man, John Morgan, who writes with MMA Junkie. He's actually, he said this himself on Twitter. He's actually on furlough. So he wrote this article and posted it on his Patreon account. But some of the quotes from there say, I had a conversation with one of the higher ups, and before we even got into money, and he's talking about the situation with Ngannou wanting to move up to fight Ngannou at heavyweight. He said, before, we even got into money, it wasn't like I asked for too much money. It was just flat out no, right off the bat. He says, even if you didn't want to change my contract, the fact that they didn't want to sign me up for a one fight deal to fight a guy that's 40 pounds bigger than me, the scariest dude on the planet, Francis Ngannou, the guy that nobody wants to fight. I'm willing to fight him while being smaller than him. And you're not going to pay me $1 more. You mean to tell me that this fight isn't worth anything more than me stepping in against Jan Blachowicz? It's just insulting. Everyone will love to see me take this risk, and they offer me zero upside. They offer me absolutely zero upside. And finally, he says, I feel like the UFC management has told me and my management team for years that if I ever wanted to reach a certain level in the sport and really get a certain level of pay, that I'd had to take the really big fights, and I had to kind of step out of my comfort zone and be willing to take those mega fights, and specifically the heavyweight division. So
I kind of have a question to ask.
Sure.
Because I can understand what he's saying, but I want to ask you a question and just, very simple. Who do you think wins that fight?
Jon. Well, as long as it gets out of the first 90 seconds.
Right.
I think Jon wins.
He's too much of a veteran not to get out of the first 90 seconds.
Well,
okay. So listen. So I understand that he's frustrated, right? But his timetable and flight map might not necessarily coincide with what the UFC wants to get out of Ngannou. And, Jon Jones going straight into that fight might not be the best thing for the UFC narrative.
I think you know what? I really think that that's a very good point. And I didn't make that point, but I said something about a week ago that would kind of support that and go in line with that. Francis Ngannou has everything to lose in that fight. And because if Ngannou does not beat Jon Jones, where does he go from there? He has no other, as a matter of fact, he'd be taking that fight instead of waiting for the winner of Stipe Miocic, Daniel Cormier, so that he can get his second title shot. He's already had one, already lost. If he loses to John, he's kind of just sitting there looking like this once was a monster, now not so much. And from your standpoint, and I could totally understand from a promoter standpoint what they're saying, we would like to maximize Francis Ngannou. If you come up and beat him, you're literally killing one of our future stars, and you're already a star. So we don't necessarily need you to do that to make your star bigger. Or if you are going to make your star bigger, we would prefer you not do it at this guy's expense.
And to build on that, they might just very well be saying, John, look, this is a fight that, once again, Papa Bull, Baby Bull. Okay? We're going to take our time. We're going to walk down. So what I'm saying is, if they do take their time, build Ngannou a little bit more. Build that sense of invincibility. Maybe there could be that intersection of a John Jones, Francis Ngannou fight when people are able to come back to arenas and even capitalize on it even more.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I don't know. We don't know, what all was discussed in this conversation. We know what John came back and discussed and talked about. And I think he probably shouldn't have gone public with it. Right. I just don't feel like that was really the most wise thing to do from a business standpoint, because it wasn't going to get his way quicker.
But Brian, he said something specific, which he said something specific. And of course, we don't know the relationship. We only know what we know from the outside. We know that there's been some issues, but he said, see in a couple of years.
Yeah, that was one of the other quotes. He also said they didn't say anything about a gate or the pandemic or anything like that. He said they just said that they feel like they're taking care of me pretty good, and that if I want to make more money, inevitably my money will go up by fighting Francis and those more entertaining fights. But that just wasn't the deal. Originally, they told me it would be a new contract if I went up to heavyweight. It was just in my plans to have my biggest fights towards the end of my career. Now I know that I'm not going to be able to make those kinds of jumps in my life. It's it's just crappy because you feel like someone's put a cap on your capabilities, that someone put a cap on your possibilities. And he did say about the see you in a couple years. I don't know how much, weight we put on that particular, thing. A lot of fighters throw things out there like that. What I feel, like I said, I don't know what all was discussed in the conversation. What I do think is that the UFC does or would be wise to have a conversation with him and to just kind of tell him, hey, this is why we don't want to do this right now. I'm totally for you at some point coming up fighting him. If what you laid out is the way, hey, let's build it a little bit more. Let him get the winner of Miocic Cormier. And then if he beats that person, then now he is this guy. You go up at that point, get the fight, then, it's bigger. But I don't, like I said, I don't know if that was told to him or not,
Brian, I would imagine it was told to him. And I would imagine that John Jones knows where the line is. And he's probably just walking right on it without crossing it. But I would imagine that was expressed to him. I would imagine that his quote was also to inspire the very conversation we're having right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think that it probably was explained to him what the plans are, match up with what he wants. So he's reacting.
Yeah. And I mean, he came right back and he said, Jan, I guess you're next. Speaking of Jan Blachowicz. And I mean, it's not like that's a horrible fight. Jan Blachowicz has earned a title shot. But I mean, I guess I know every mixed martial arts fan will tell you is which fight would they rather see? John Jones against Jan Blachowicz or Jan Jones against Francis Ngannou? I mean, almost probably 100% would say they'd rather see the latter. But, like I said, we don't know what all was discussed in that conversation.
Right.
We just know what he's sharing. But it is interesting to have you're the best fighter currently in your promotion feeling some kind of way, whether he has a right to or not. He feels some kind of way.
When was the last time John Jones fought at heavyweight?
He's never fought at heavyweight.
I know.
Right.
So maybe part of that conversation is, why don't we have a fight at heavyweight and lead into that fight?
Well, because here's the thing, because Ngannou's not the champion. So Ngannou is the lead in to a championship fight.
Right, but he's a draw right now.
He is a draw. He's
you know what I mean? Like, you know, so maybe there's more steps to this.
I think I got I'm on John's side in terms, if it's from that standpoint, because he's not saying, let me step up and get a championship fight. He's not even saying that. He says, give me the scariest contender and I'll beat him.
Who do people, what's the consensus on who the best heavyweight in the UFC is?
While Stipe Miocic is the champion, I think most people would probably tell you that they think Daniel's still the best.
Okay.
You know, yeah,
right.
I think most people would say that.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, and here's the thing: it would be different if what John was trying to do was totally unprecedented in the UFC, but it's not.
Right.
They essentially allowed Georges St-Pierre to come off the couch, so to speak, and go right in and challenge Michael Bisping in a weight class he'd never fought in before. Exact. And Georges St-Pierre was retired, came right in and got a title shot against Michael Bisping in middleweight.
Might have been different timing, different circumstances.
The only different timing, different circumstance. I mean, obviously we weren't in a pandemic at the time, but
which plays into it.
Yeah, but like John said, they didn't mention anything of, and this is assuming what he says is 100% accurate, and there's no stretching right there. Like I said, we don't know what all was said, but what we do know is that he's an active champion currently who wants to have a fight. It's not even a title fight,
right?
And he's being denied that. I'm not saying the UFC is wrong, but I'm saying that there needs to be, as far as between him and them, some level of transparency. I don't know if that's taking place or not, but I do think that they should at least be able to tell him, well, here's why not.
Right.
So if that happened already, then great. If not,
I'm sure we're gonna hear plenty more in the coming weeks.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. Let's go into our first between the rounds.
So, Brian.
Yes.
Something that we've talked a lot about, both off the show and on the show, pre-coronavirus, during coronavirus, seems to just be growing and growing and growing. I don't know what it is, but from the gaming perspective and video game perspective, it seems like more than ever, there has been dialogue, conversation, some actual movement in the gaming space for all different types of combat sports and, you know, the alike. And, you know, really what I wanted to do is in the championship rounds, have you come back and talk about that and let us know where we're at.
Yeah, it's a lot going on. It's a lot going on in literally every kind of combat sports video game. So I've been really doing some work and digging and talking to a lot of different people who are part of development teams and so on and so forth about what is happening. It's like a combat sports revolution right now. And so I can't wait to kind of shed some light on some of that stuff in the championship rounds, because there really is a lot to discuss there. So yeah,
I don't want to give a lot away. You know, I want you to.
It should be fun. It should be fun. It should be fun.
And I'll comment once you start.
Yeah, for sure. I want to know what you think, because I actually, as a person who doesn't like game hard like that, I know you don't. I want to know like what your first impression is on some of this stuff. You know, but for now, let's jump into our round two. All right, so we're talking Adrian Broner, of course, and Broner has some. Oh, he's an interesting cat. He's an interesting cat. He has not been active for a while, and as we both know, he has not actually been victorious.
A while is an understatement.
It's been a while since he's been
Was
victorious.
Pacquiao the last fight?
No, I'm talking about. We're talking about Broner. And Broner, Pacquiao is the last fight. Pacquiao's the last fight. Yeah, it was
quite a while ago.
It actually seems like it's been longer than it has been. It's actually been 14 months, but it seems no, I'm sorry, 16 months.
It's a while ago.
It feels like longer than that, to be honest.
Well, technically, he's considered an inactive fighter after 12 months.
Yes, and he hasn't won a fight in more than 3 years.
Right.
So just think about that, right? So somehow he is still insisting upon that, that he's a star and that he, he does do good numbers. The numbers don't lie. If you look at Showtime when he fights, he does good numbers. But right now he's not getting what he wants. And this is what he's just said recently on his Instagram account.
I ain't heard from Steven Espinoza. Me and Al, we talk every day, but ain't nobody talking about that 10 million. So I take that as I'm still retired. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just focus on my album, and I'm just a rapper. I'm a rapper now.
I'm a rapper. Adrian Broner is a funny cat, is what he is. He's a funny cat, and he's a rapper. Did you download his album yet?
I have not.
You haven't?
No.
Peter.
I missed it.
You missed it. You missed it. You didn't get it. You didn't get it.
So let's get to the crux of what he was saying, though.
He was a rapper.
No, he wasn't.
It's not. He's not a rapper. He really isn't a rapper, but okay.
Well, that was his, I think, tongue-in-cheek, I think.
I don't know. See.
Well, he mentioned no one's talking about that 10 million. Obviously, that's the number that he put out there to fight somebody. We were supposed to assume, right, that somebody was Floyd Mayweather Jr.
Yes.
And what he's saying is no one's talking about that 10 million. So so I'm not fighting anybody. I think it's either that or I couldn't imagine else he would think he could command 10 million for. You know what I mean?
No, I'm sure it's about the fight, what I'm
saying is I think what he was saying is until someone meets my demands, I'm just a rapper.
All righty.
Yes. What you got?
Okay. Floyd is now, it looks like Floyd is training Devin Haney. And this is actually, I don't know if he's like taken over the training, because this can be really deceiving. This could just be one workout. You never know what it is. But, because of Devin Haney's obvious skill level, because he has posted images and basically, embraced the concept of likening himself to Floyd and kind of following Floyd's blueprint, it starts to add even more validation when you see something like this. And Mayweather has expressed over the last few weeks that he has a real desire to get into training. And so, I mean, for me personally, I really feel like this could be something that I think could be fantastic for both of their careers. And when I say career from Mayweather's standpoint, I'm talking about reinventing himself yet again. Because Floyd has reinvented himself like 2 or 3 times already as in terms of his boxing life. And if he is doing that again with Devin Haney, I mean, Devin Haney already has the goods, but this would take it to a whole nother level. And I think they could be great for each other as long as Floyd is in it. So I want to know what you think about that.
Sure. I got a lot to say.
Give it. In the championship round.
I know.
All right.
Oh, boy.
Let's jump into our round 3. It is time to ask the fight guys. So we got something here that's might take us a little bit of time, but I think you already kind of have yours loaded up. I don't know if you got the full thing loaded up, but we'll find out.
Right.
This one comes from Jeremy T. And I'm going to say we borrowed this question because I really liked it from the Athletics mailbag. I just really dug the question because it was something I kind of talked about in a previous show. But I mentioned that we would get back to it. But when I came across it, I was like, oh, okay, let's do that. And basically, he says, who are the best heavyweights in UFC? Actually, he didn't actually mention or specify boxing, but he definitely was talking about UFC to never hold a title.
Okay.
So would you like to give?
I'll tackle a couple in boxing that come to mind immediately.
Got it.
And then I'll let you tackle UFC. Then we can talk a little bit and see if we can think of some more. So right out of the gate, for me, one of those in boxing would be Razor Ruddock, Donovan Ruddock.
Absolutely.
For the time. I mean, he just was at the wrong time in his prime. He had the 2 fights with Mike. He was competitive in the first fight, went the distance. It was, did he go to distance both fights?
Yeah, I don't think Mike stopped him in either one. Maybe the second one. Maybe the second one. I can't recall. I know the second one was far easier for Mike. I just can't. I'm trying to. I have to go back and look and see if he stopped him in that second fight. But I know the second one was far less competitive. It was disappointing because we thought that actually he stopped him the first fight and the unanimous decision the second fight.
Right, and that is who Mike referred to as having the punch like a mule kick.
Yes.
So that's one fighter that had some really good fights, but never won a world title. Another one that comes to mind is David Tua. I just think in another time with other champions, he might have had a better opportunity. But I think just, physically, when he did get his shot, he just might have been too small. So those are just 2 that come to mind right away for boxing. What do you think about UFC? And then we can go into your boxing.
Yeah, well, for UFC, the first guy that jumps to my mind and just immediately is Alistair Overeem. Overeem has been everything you could possibly suspect or expect to see from somebody who Overeem's one of them dudes that it almost feels like he's been the champion. But then you have to think about it and you go like, you know what? He never was the champion. He's never, and he's been so close, right? Because he had Stipe Miocic hurt and didn't finish him, and then got finished himself a little bit after that. So that it's something that he's never been a champion, So he definitely comes to mind as the first guy. The second guy is a guy we already talked about today, and it's Francis Ngannou. And I know that Francis Ngannou's career hasn't been that long yet, but if you consider the people that he's already beaten, it's significant. He's beaten Curtis Blades twice. He knocked out Junior Dos Santos. He knocked out Cain Velasquez. He's knocked out Jairzinho Rosenstrike. I mean, he's knocked out some guys already who are, either former champions or perennial contenders during his time. So he definitely is another guy that comes to mind as like, yeah, you would have thought that he would have been the champion. But another one that's really obvious, but it's kind of a trick answer, is Fedor Emelianenko. Because Fedor Emelianenko is widely regarded as the greatest heavyweight in mixed martial arts history. But he's never fought in the UFC.
Right.
So that would be that's really the answer for the most part. But because he's never fought in the UFC, you could say, oh, yeah, of course not. But so it's kind of like one of those tricky things. But Fedor is probably the greatest heavyweight of all time. So those would be my 3 from a mixed martial arts standpoint.
And what'd you have for boxing?
For boxing, we talked about this guy once before, but Ike Ibeabuchi. would definitely be
Right.
right there for me.
You have the same argument.
Yeah. He would be the greatest heavyweight to never win a championship. I mean, one of them.
Right,
he's definitely right there in the conversation.
Right.
But Razor
But you understand what I'm saying, right? Like mine were based on guys that fought for the title and came up short because of the era and who they had to fight at the time. That maybe at a different time they would have had an easier path. Ike never fought for the title, and we don't know how he would have been if he did fight for the title. He might have won the title.
But he
you know what I'm saying? He might have walked right through it.
Yeah, but I think it's kind of like a black and white kind of a question.
Yeah.
It's like they didn't win a title, so it doesn't matter why he didn't.
Right.
So you know what I mean. So I mean, so that's kind of the way I look at him.
Right. Yeah, I mean, both ways make sense.
Yeah, he didn't win the title, and he definitely, in my opinion, was talent worthy enough to have won. He just didn't get it done. I can feel the Razor Ruddock. I definitely can kind of say, yeah, I understand that. But honestly, I can't think of another heavyweight that heavyweight is interesting, right? Because there generally isn't a ton of great heavyweights. Like you've had some time periods like in the 80s where you had just a bunch of great heavyweights, Larry Holmes, Tim Witherspoon, all of these different guys that were Ronaldo Snipes, Michael Dokes, and all of these guys that were just Mike Weaver, just great, just really good. And Mike Weaver wasn't even a great heavyweight. Mike Weaver had a fantastic day, but all of these names of guys who were really good, that was like the golden time of being a heavyweight.
I have another one, by the way.
Who is that?
Burt Cooper. Competitive. Yeah. All right. Just saying he was actually a really hell of a heavyweight.
Yeah, he's poor man's Joe Frazier.
I mean, almost got rid of Holyfield in Atlanta.
Yeah, I remember. I saw that fight, and I remember. I'll never forget.
I'm trying to find some names. You know what I mean? I'm trying to
forget Burt Cooper's post-fight interview. It was hilarious. So Joe Tessitore, I think it was Joe. Can't remember who it was. Joe, I think it was Joe Tessitore is interviewing him. He says, "So, what do you say? No more ESPN fights?" No, he says he asked him something about what did he look for? Did he want to step up? And Burt Cooper say, "Yeah, no more ESPN fights." And then he looked like he was about to say something else poignant, and he just looked at the camera and said, "No more ESPN fights." And I was like, "You tell him, Burt. You tell him. But he had Holyfield hurt. He had him hurt.
Honestly, I'd love to know what the viewers, some that come right to mind right now, put them in the chat.
Yeah,
it's just like what pops in your head.
Yeah, the thing about heavyweight, to finish with my point, the thing about heavyweight is that generally there is no era, right, where there's so many of them that somebody gets denied, because you have most of for the last 40 years or so or more, you've had multiple heavyweight championships out there to win. And because generally there aren't a ton of really good heavyweights at one time, just about everybody who's ever been good enough to be a champion that you can think of usually has worn the belt at some point. That's why it's kind of difficult. I do agree Ruddock is in there for sure, and Ibeabuchi obviously, but his circumstances are different than Ruddock's. But yeah, for outside of that, you look at the last 40 years, just about everybody that I could think of that was really truly championship worthy, I feel like they got one. I don't really think Burt Cooper was
You don't think David Tua could fit in there?
Oh, David Tua, yeah, definitely. But David Tua feels I thought David Tua was I thought he was.
I don't believe he won any version of the world title.
I don't know. I thought he did. I don't know. It felt like he was, because wasn't he? I mean,
he fought Lennox Lewis. He knocked out Michael Moore, but there was no title fight.
It wasn't a title fight. I mean, I know that was smack dab.
Right, but Lewis, he fought, and Lewis was just too big. I believe it was Lewis.
Let's see. David Tua. I'm just trying to figure out, because he might.
Was it 2000, 2001?
Yeah, because I remember that everybody was so Tyson hungry, and because he came out and he was short and stout, and
but he could box. He was fast. He had a good punch,
and he wore similar attire.
Yeah.
that, people kind of got caught up in that feeling like,
Sure.
he was, but yeah, it doesn't. He drew an IBF title eliminator with Hasim Rahman.
But that doesn't, yeah.
No, I know. I know. I'm saying
Right,
that's what the opportunity that he
sure.
had and didn't get. No,
But I believe he still fought Lennox Lewis.
yeah, he lost. He lost
2000 or 2001.
In 2000. He lost to Lennox,
right,
for the title.
And he beat Michael right before that.
Who, Lennox? You mean?
No, David Tua. He knocked out Michael Moore.
He knocked out Michael Moore in the first round. He didn't fight Michael Ray.
No, what I'm saying is, did he fight Michael before or after Lewis?
Oh, that was after. He fought Mike. He fought Michael.
And he
Moore
never fought for the world title again.
Nope, never fought for the world title. That is crazy because it feels like he did, but he didn't.
Right.
Feels like he did. It's like right on the cusp.
I mean, the one guy he had to fight for the title. I mean,
yeah,
could have fought a number of other guys. Could have been fighting John Ruiz for the title.
Yeah, probably wins that fight. Yeah, that's crazy though. He did not. But the thing of it is Tua might be one of the more overrated heavyweights, because if you look at this and you look at the people that he lost to, now he did beat Rahman the first time they fought.
Mm-hmm.
And then he lost to
former heavyweight champion who knocked out Lennox Lewis.
Yeah, he lost. And it's funny because he knocked John Ruiz out back in '96.
Right. Who?
Tua.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. Though.
No, I'm saying
not the beneficiary of when he had the title.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that proves that had he fought him when he had the title, he would have had a great chance to win. Like his best victories are like the first win over Rahman. Then he also like his, knocked out Obed Sullivan. Mm-hmm. Those are like his best victories every time. Oh, and beating Michael Moore, but every time he really stepped up and fought a major fighter that, whose legacy kind of transcends that era in any way, he lost those fights.
Right.
So yeah, it's but I mean, I still think he fits in that category to answer that question. Did you have somebody from the UFC or from mixed martial arts or heavyweight?
No, I mean, I really didn't.
Yeah, I think
I think where you're at is right on.
Yeah, the only one other person that I could think of from a UFC standpoint, and you can make an argument one way or the other. It does not have an attractive record, but Mark Hunt has been competitive with just about every major heavyweight in history, and everybody knows he's always just a one shot away from victory. So I would say that he's maybe on the cusp of this, but maybe not quite all the way in.
Right.
But yeah, it's definitely an interesting conversation for sure. But let's jump into our first of our championship rounds. Yeah, about
the talking about this explosion.
Yes.
Of gaming in the combat space in every genre.
For sure.
Where there was like a little dormancy, and
yeah, it's across almost every single sport, man. It is but boxing, MMA, professional wrestling. I mean, professional wrestling for the most part, we get a new game every year. But WWE 2K20 was an absolute disaster. Just a bug field mess. Everybody who plays the game knows. If you're in the gaming at all, sports gaming at all, you probably saw some of the videos that people were putting out.
Oh, it's buggy.
That's
no fixes.
It was a lot of fixes. There were a lot of fixes that were done, and it was just too far gone really to salvage, because with a video game, when a sports video game is released, so it's any game really, it's not even a sports video game, the first week to 3 weeks is critical, because in this era of social media, if the game takes a hit, it doesn't matter that if the updates make the game the greatest game ever, the chances of people coming back to it are slim to none. They just don't. If you get killed in the first week to 3, I mean, you can salvage something, but it won't ever be like it would have been if things were in place from the beginning. So that they found themselves in that situation. So they are rebooting the series. They're going with a more arcade version later this year, but then their more simulation version will come out next year. I'm of the belief that it's going to release around WrestleMania, which I think is really smart for them to do. Because the way they have it now, they kind of capitalize on SummerSlam and it rolls into Survivor Series. But I think mixing it around their biggest pay-per-view, which is WrestleMania, is a smart thing. But there's so many of them. I mean, we got Virtual Basement has an untitled wrestling project. They're signing all kinds of independent talent. And the indie wrestling scene is pretty powerful, and they're literally working like they're giving a sandbox of options to people to use, and it's more than just them. You know, the Art of Boxing is coming for it's the beta is already out for PC. I'm just gonna be honest. Right now, it's a hot mess. It's not very. They have a couple interesting career mode things, but their beta is so rough right now that I'm not even sure that it was a smart decision to have this out available to the public. So it's kind of tough. Hard Knock them. What I learned from one of their developers that I spoke with is that their concept is to have their game as a running, fluid kind of a experience for the entire time period. So essentially our game is never finished. We're constantly making updates. But it's just going to be a forever kind of a beta kind of concept, which is why they call it live, because it's a live fluid thing. I am not the biggest fan of that approach at all.
Right.
I don't like it. And so yeah, we'll see what happens. Maybe they'll be able to turn or flip it from there. And then of course, like we said, we have the WWE 2K. Now there is a boxing club, and they're signing some pretty interesting talent. Ricky Hatton's on board, and they have a couple other interesting. Josh Taylor. Josh Taylor's also signed for them, and we haven't seen very much from a visual standpoint. I'm not saying that it jumped out and really, really grabbed me yet, but we have to see more before we know, completely. And then, of course, EA UFC 4 should be out before the end of this year, but COVID-19 has impacted just about every development cycle that you can think of. So we don't know necessarily whether or not this is going to be delayed or not. So when we get updates, I'll either cover this on Forbes or Heavy and also talk about it here in the videos. But there are a lot of things going on from a combat sports gaming perspective, and I am a major consumer in those different subgenres, so I can't wait to see what all they have. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, we can talk. We have already spoken ad nauseum about the void in the market for a boxing video game. So hopefully before the end of the year, we'll at least have a hardcore release date for the next one.
And I promise you, Brian, that if a quality boxing game comes out, I will play you for money.
Okay. No problem. No problem. And I will try not to knock you out within the first 90 seconds like Ngannou needs to knock out John Jones. I might turn you into a rapper.
You never know. They made a lot of money. Some of them made a lot of money.
All day. Got the sway. Hey. All right. Let's jump into our second championship round. And we are talking about Devin Haney and Floyd. I want to know what your thoughts are about that.
So I have a couple of things to say. Number one, it's in Miami. They're in the, quarantine, or was it LA? One of the two. They were on bikes. Okay. They obviously have a relationship. Years back we heard it was strained. Now it's okay. Obviously, Haney ended up signing with Matchroom. He's now training with Floyd. I like seeing how Floyd is working the mitts, working technique. Things are moving in a, you know what I mean? It just seemed like more realistic training versus the choreographed mitt routines that you used to see Floyd do with Roger. It actually looks like Floyd's teaching.
Yes, it did.
So that part, I think that's great, right? A lot to offer. He probably could be one of the guys that was great at what he did and could probably translate that knowledge to the training aspect.
I 100% agree.
So I think that the other thing in this story is that somebody was upset. Somebody took to social media and had their feelings hurt. Somebody canceled their trip to come to camp because he did not like what he was seeing.
I would imagine.
And so the part that's intriguing to me is that Gervonta Davis is signed to Mayweather Promotions. He's feeling a certain type of way about Floyd training somebody that he could be fighting in a world championship capacity. So it feels very soap opera-ish to me.
It does.
Because Haney's with Matchroom. Gervonta's with Floyd, with Mayweather Promotions.
Right.
Having those two in camp together at this stage of their career is really not something that a lot of fighters would do.
No, you don't want that.
It just wouldn't be done.
Right.
And so now, I understand that Floyd could be like, well, look, I'm your promoter, but I'm training.
That's an absolute conflict of interest.
I just think that we're going to see a lot more war of the words. And I think I think it's all going to come to a head somehow, some way. But it kind of feels like WWE-ish in a way, where there's a storyline developing. But what I can say is this: I think Floyd's probably going to be a very good trainer.
Yeah,
I think he has not just his own experience to draw from, but in all seriousness, his uncle and his father were excellent fighters and trainers. I mean, don't forget, Senior trained Oscar too, but Roger was an excellent fighter and an excellent trainer.
The original Black Mamba.
Yeah. So I don't know. I kind of like the way that, I liked watching the training for what it was. And it's not the first time we've seen Floyd now on social media actually training. So I don't know. It might work. But, I see the drama building over here.
You know what? Honestly, the one thing I thought about is, okay, so obviously Floyd could work with Gervonta the same way if he wanted to.
Yeah, but Gervonta's loyal. But Gervonta's loyal to who he's been with.
Let me finish my thought on that. But perhaps he's not, because he sees more of an actual student in Devin Haney than he sees in Gervonta. Maybe Gervonta is the more attractive guy to promote because he has the charisma and the magnetism for a certain, for Gervonta's got his demo on lock. But when you look at Devin Haney, there may be something that is more moldable from a pure fighter standpoint. Because Gervonta kind of comes off to me as he's a guy, I'm athletically gifted. I come in here, I do this. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this. It's going to work or it's not, but this is what I'm going to do. Devin Haney has a vibe about him that it's like, I'm a sponge and I am literally looking for who I can pull, what I can pull from. You're great. Okay, come show me some of your greatness. And if you're an older person, or older fighter, or veteran, somebody an emeritus in the game, there is an attraction to a person who has that kind of a vibe. And perhaps that's the itch that Floyd is scratching with that guy, because I totally believe that Floyd is a kind of dude who can compartmentalize certain things in certain relationships. And it's like, okay, I am associated with Gervonta. I'm associated with Broner because those guys have some level of attraction that is undeniable. The numbers say what they say. But from my inner boxing guy, is more attracted to Devin Haney because Devin Haney wants to be great.
So can I say something? And I hear what you're saying, and that's great from a purist type of standpoint, right? Like with no other business scenarios at play. So would Floyd train Devin Haney, who's clearly with another promoter that fights exclusively on another network, to possibly and be in the corner against the person he's building and has been billing as the next superstar in the sport, who fights on a different platform, who's with his promotion? He'd literally be hurting himself.
Well, I'm not saying what I was saying is I was explaining what could be his attraction.
Right, but you understand my point too, right?
No, absolutely. Yeah. What I was explaining was what would his attraction be to Devin Haney? Why is it that you feel compelled, for whatever reason?
Well, they've known each other a long time,
right? But I'm saying when you consistently deal with a person, there's a reason.
Right. Now, remember, Gervonta was on his way down there for camp, apparently. Maybe he was going to train with Floyd.
Maybe he was, but he didn't because of this.
Right. This apparently rubbed him the wrong way. And he went to social media.
So what I'm saying is that Floyd was going to deal with Devin Haney regardless, because the session with Haney is the reason Gervonta didn't come.
Maybe it was just one session.
It doesn't matter. What I'm saying is he likes this kid.
What I'm saying is there's drama.
Yeah, it is drama. Or it could definitely turn into drama. And I wouldn't say that Floyd doesn't have some ulterior motive. Like, I'm going to snatch Devin Haney away from you guys at some point. As soon as he gets loose, I'm going to get. I'll get him.
He's not going to get loose anytime soon because he just got. So he's not going to get loose anytime soon.
He just got. But it's about planting seeds and that sort of thing. Maybe you can whatever. At some point, he'll be free.
Okay, 7 years from now.
Okay. Yeah. 7 years.
I'm saying with he's got a 5-year deal. If I would imagine being champion, it extends. He's got some options. I'm just saying this is.
But the thing of it is, if I'm his trainer, I'm plugged in here. It also keeps me visible on several different levels. I'm in the conversation because of this drama that you're saying, which I totally agree with.
And we're talking about it,
right? And we're talking about it, and so is everybody else in boxing.
I mean, look, I just back to the basic question about what do I think? I think Floyd will be a good trainer.
Yeah, I think you'll be.
Who wouldn't want to listen?
You're crazy if you don't, especially
just because what he can, not only his own experience, but what he can pass down the way he was trained. Because look, a lot of it is going to be his own talent and his gift, but then it's that what he learned behind that. You know, not everything that Floyd learned and practiced was in front of cameras.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And so he's able to also probably translate a lot of that and the mindfulness and the mental aspect.
Yes.
Which I think, people never really talk about when they talk about Floyd.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm not even sure if that's something Floyd can even pass on to somebody, because I think for him, I think it's natural.
Right. But you could try to,
because like some
instill that in somebody.
I think Floyd can teach the techniques.
Right.
But that part of it is just different. I think that's just because I don't think anybody taught it to him. I just think it's a natural thing for him to be able to hone in on his moment and be in that moment. For him, because I can't imagine which person in his life had taught him mindfulness. I think it's just something that he just has. He just has it. Devin, Floyd's been chasing this trainer thing for a minute. 2 months ago, he offered to train Deontay. So this is not he's got a real hunger for this for one reason or another, whether it's ulterior motives, whatever it is, but he seems to have a real hunger for this. So I'm interested in see, you know, kind of how it shakes out, but he definitely does seem to have a legitimate hunger for it. So that's all we have for you today, because you've probably run out of a legitimate hunger for us. Not really, but at any rate, as always, we appreciate you watching. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't done it as of yet. As always, God bless and peace.